Chapter 6 of the Mystery of Edwin Drood. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Alan Chant. The Mystery of Edwin Drood, the unfinished novel by Charles Dickens. Chapter 6. Philanthropy in Minor Canon Corner. The Reverend Septimus Crisp-Sparkle, Septimus because 6 little brother Crisp-Sparkles before him went out, one by one, as they were born, like 6 weak little rushlights as they were lighted. Having broken the thin morning ice near Cloisterham Weir with his amiable head, much to the invigoration of his frame, was now assisting his circulation by boxing at a looking-glass with great science and prowess. A fresh and healthy portrait the looking-glass presented of the Reverend Septimus, feinting and dodging with the utmost artfulness, and hitting out from the shoulder with the utmost straightfulness, while his radiant features teemed with innocence, and soft-hearted benevolence beamed from his boxing-gloves. It was scarcely breakfast-time yet, for Mrs. Crisp-Sparkle, mother, not wife, of the Reverend Septimus, was only just down, and waiting for the urn. Indeed, the Reverend Septimus left off at this very moment to take the pretty old lady's entering face between his boxing-gloves, and kiss it. Having done so with tenderness, the Reverend Septimus turned to again, countering with his left, and putting in his right, in a tremendous manner.
"I say every morning of my life that you'll do it at last, Sep," remarked the old lady, looking on. "And so you will." "Do what, Ma dear?" "Break the pier glass, or burst a blood vessel." "Neither, please God, Ma dear. Here's wind, Ma. Look at this!" In a concluding round of great severity, the Reverend Septimus administered and escaped all sorts of punishment, and wound up by getting the old lady's cap into Chancery (such is the technical term used in scientific circles by the learned in the noble art), with a lightness of touch that hardly stirred the lightest lavender or cherry riband on it. Magnanimously releasing the defeated just in time to get his gloves into a drawer, and feign to be looking out of window in a contemplative state of mind when a servant entered, the Reverend Septimus then gave place to the urn and other preparations for breakfast. These completed, and the two alone again, it was pleasant to see, or would have been if there had been any one to see it, which there never was, the old lady standing to say the Lord's Prayer aloud, and her son, Minor Canon nevertheless, standing with bent head to hear it, he being within 5 years of 40, much as he had stood to hear the same words from the same lips when he was within 5 months of 4. What is prettier than an old lady, except a young lady, when her eyes are bright, when her figure is trim and compact, when her face is cheerful and calm, when her dress is as the dress of a China shepherdess, so dainty in its colours, so individually assorted to herself, so neatly moulded on her? Nothing is prettier, thought the good Canon frequently, when taking his seat at table opposite his long-widowed mother. Her thought at such times may be condensed into the 2 words that oftenest did duty together in all her conversations: "My Sept." They were a good pair to sit breakfasting together in Minor Canon Corner, Cloisterham. For Minor Canon Corner was a quiet place in the shadow of the Cathedral, which the cawing of the rooks, the echoing footsteps of rare passers, the sound of the Cathedral bell, or the roll of the Cathedral organ, seemed to render more quiet than absolute silence. Swaggering fighting men had had their centuries of ramping and raving about Minor Canon Corner, and beaten serfs had had their centuries of drudging and dying there,
and powerful monks had had their centuries of being sometimes useful and sometimes harmful there. And behold, they were all gone out of Minor Canon Corner, and so much the better. Perhaps one of the highest uses of their ever having been there was, that they might be left behind that blessed air of tranquillity which pervaded Minor Canon Corner, and that serenely romantic state of mind, productive for the most part of pity and forbearance, which is engendered by a sorrowful story that is all told, or a pathetic play that is played out. Red brick walls harmoniously toned down in colour by time, strong-rooted ivy, latticed windows, panelled rooms, big oaken beams in little places, and stone-walled gardens where annual fruit yet ripened upon monkish trees, were the principal surroundings of pretty old Mrs. Crisparkle and the Reverend Septimus as they sat at breakfast. "And what, Ma dear," inquired the Minor Canon, giving proof of a wholesome and vigorous appetite, "does the letter say?" The pretty old lady, after reading it, had just laid it down upon the breakfast cloth. She handed it over to her son. Now the old lady was exceeding proud of her bright eyes being so clear that she could read writing without spectacles. Her son was also so proud of the circumstance, and so dutifully bent on her deriving the utmost possible gratification from it, that he had invented the pretence that he himself could not read writing without spectacles. Therefore he now assumed a pair of grave and prodigious proportions, which not only seriously inconvenienced his nose and his breakfast, but seriously impeded his perusal of the letter. For he had the eyes of a microscope and a telescope combined, when they were unassisted. "It's from Mr. Honeythunder, of course," said the old lady, folding her arms. "Of course," assented her son. He then lamely read on: "Haven of Philanthropy, Chief Offices, London, Wednesday. Dear Madam, I write in the what's this? What does he write in?" "In the chair," said the old lady. The Reverend Septimus took off his spectacles that he might see her face, as he exclaimed: "Why, what should he write in?" bless me, Sept," returned the old lady. "You don't see the context. Give it back to me, my dear." Glad to get his spectacles off, for they always made his eyes water, her son obeyed, murmuring that his sight for reading manuscript got worse and worse daily. "I write," his mother went on, reading very perspiciously and precisely, "from the chair to which I shall probably be confined for some hours." Septimus looked at the row of chairs against the wall, with a half protesting and half appealing countenance. "We have," the old lady read on with a little extra emphasis, "a meeting of our convened Chief Composite Committee of Central and District Philanthropists at our head haven as above, and it is their unanimous pleasure that I take the chair." Septimus breathed more freely, and muttered, "Oh, if he comes to that, let him. Not to lose a day's post, I take the opportunity of a long report being read, denouncing a public miscreant." "It is a most extraordinary thing," interposed the gentle Minor Canon, laying down his knife and fork to rub his ear in a vexed manner, "that these philanthropists are always denouncing somebody; and it is another most extraordinary thing that they are always so violently flush of miscreants." "Denouncing a public miscreant," the old lady resumed, "to get our little affair of business off my mind. I have spoken with my 2 wards, Neville and Helena Landless,
on the subject of their defective education,